Have you ever felt a strange energy from someone who smiles at you, but something deep down whispers they can't be trusted? It's not the loud enemies you should be afraid of. It's the ones who smile silently while studying your every move. Some people don't just dislike youth, they want to see you crash, and they'll make sure it happens without ever getting their hands dirty. Not all threats come with warning signs. In fact, the most dangerous ones often wear the kindest faces. This isn't about being paranoid, it's about being prepared. Some people won't argue with you. They won't criticize you. They'll smile, agree, and nod, all while quietly orchestrating your downfall behind the scenes. And by the time you realize what's happening, it might already be too late. They won't shout their hatred. They don't need to. They're patient, calculating, and worst of all, they know how to wear the mask of a friend, a colleague, or even a trusted family member. If you can't identify them in time, they'll slowly drain your energy emotionally, financially, even socially. Then, once you're used up, they'll move on to their next target without a second thought. In this video, I'll reveal 5 critical signs that go far beyond casual dislike signs, that point to a deeper, more dangerous intent, true destruction. And trust me, if you spot even one of these red flags in someone around you, don't ignore it. Because catching it early could save you years of silent manipulation, betrayal, or something even worse. So, ask yourself honestly, do you really know who's in your corner? Or is someone quietly waiting for the right moment to strike? Before we dive in, if you're serious about learning how to protect your peace through Stoic wisdom and build emotional armor that no one can break, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell, because knowledge isn't just power anymore, it's protection. 1. The silent observer. There's a reason predators in the wild don't roar before they strike. The deadliest ones don't make noise, they watch, they wait. They blend into the shadows until the perfect moment to pounce. And by the time you realize it, the damage is already done. This person doesn't insult you. They don't start arguments. Instead, they gather information quietly, intentionally. I call them the silent observer. They're not just a nosy coworker listening in on gossip, not just an ex who checks your profile from time to time. This is someone who monitors you with precision, following your actions, not out of curiosity, but with a plan. And here's the scariest part. You rarely notice. Why? Because they don't confront, they infiltrate. Maybe you've met one already. Ever had someone randomly mention a place you visited even though you never told them about it? Or maybe someone seems to just appear in your daily routine more and more, like they know where you'll be before you even get there. At first, it feels like coincidence. You ignore it. But when it keeps happening, when they always seem to be just there, it becomes clear. This isn't random. This is surveillance. And in today's world, tracking doesn't require binoculars. It just takes attention, strategy, and silence. Tracking someone doesn't take effort, it takes consistency. You may not post about your daily routine, but your friends do. You might not announce your schedule, but people around you unknowingly fill in the blanks. The silent observer doesn't need to hack your phone. They just need to pay attention. A friend tags you at a dinner spot. A colleague casually mentions your gym. A neighbor comments on your work hours. Piece by piece, they gather small details. Slowly, they build a map of your life. And once they know enough, they begin inserting themselves into it. At first, it seems harmless. You bump into them at the same cafe every morning. You start noticing them at the gym more often. Maybe they even strike up casual conversations, acting like it's all pure coincidence. but deep down, something doesn't feel right. Their timing is too perfect. Their presence is too frequent. They know things they shouldn't. They show up in places they shouldn't be. And yet when you try to explain it, even to yourself, you hesitate. You don't want to seem paranoid. But this isn't paranoia. It's targeted observation. It's calculated. So how do you protect yourself? By paying attention, not with fear, but with clarity. Ask yourself, who always seems to show up where you are? Who knows things they were never told? Who makes you feel uncomfortable even when nothing seems technically wrong? Your instincts are rarely wrong. The human brain is built to sense danger long before we consciously notice it. That gut feeling you get, it's not random. It's your survival system whispering, something's off. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Your mind will take the shape of what you frequently hold in thought." If you ignore the signs, if you silence your intuition, you give the silent observer exactly what they want. Invisibility. The key to protection isn't paranoia, it's presence. It's awareness. You can't control who watches you, but you can control what they see. Break your patterns. Change your routines. Be unpredictable. The harder you are to follow, the less appealing you are to manipulators. And most importantly, trust your intuition. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And in a game where your safety is on the line, the worst mistake you can make is believing no one's watching. 2. The quiet betrayal knot. All attacks come with sirens. Some sneak in like poison, slow, quiet, and undetectable. Until it's too late. The most dangerous enemies aren't the ones who openly fight you. They're the ones who shake your hand while untying your shoelaces, then step back and watch you stumble, making it look like you tripped on your own. Take Alex, for example. He was thriving at work, respected, productive, liked, then things started to shift subtly. His manager, once enthusiastic about his ideas, now seemed indifferent. Colleagues who used to chat warmly grew distant. Lunch invitations quietly disappeared. The office environment hadn't changed, but Alex no longer felt like part of it. At first, he blamed himself. Did he offend someone? Was he reading too much into things? But as days turned into weeks, a pattern emerged. A joke taken the wrong way. Credit for a project suddenly given to someone else. A vague comment about his attitude that no one could explain. This wasn't bad luck. Wasn't coincidence. Someone was working against him, not with open attacks, but quiet whispers. This, is how betrayal works when it's done with patience. It doesn't hit like a hammer. It seeps like a leak, silently weakening your foundation until you fall. The person behind it rarely acts directly. They plant seeds, let others water them. A rumor here, a misinterpreted comment there, a carefully placed concern shared with just the right person. They don't spread outright lies. Instead, they deal in carefully crafted half-truths, just enough to create doubt, to make people hesitate, to make them take a small step back from you. And by the time you realize what's been happening behind the scenes, the harm is already deeply rooted. The Stoics understood this form of quiet sabotage, while Marcus Aurelius, a man surrounded by power-hungry senators and backstabbing advisors, once wrote, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know the truth." In today's world, perception often matters more than reality. People follow whispers more than they follow facts. They believe rumors over reason, and once your image is tainted, unfairly, it's incredibly hard to undo. If your sense of self-worth is based on what others think of you, you'll constantly be at the mercy of their opinions. But if your identity is rooted in something deeper, your integrity, your choices, your values, then no rumor can shake you. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that harm only comes in obvious forms. We imagine betrayal as a loud, explosive event, but in truth, it often arrives disguised as concern, as quiet advice, as a friendly warning. It's wrapped in careful words, spoken by someone who never seems to get their own hands dirty, but the goal is always the same: to leave you uncertain, isolated, and easier to control. So how do you protect yourself? First, understand this truth. Your reputation is fragile. It can be manipulated, but your character, that's unbreakable. Others can twist how the world sees you, but they cannot change who you are at your core. As Epictetus said, if someone speaks ill of you, do not defend yourself with words. Live in such a way that no one believes them. Don't waste energy chasing rumors. Let your actions be the evidence. Let the way you live expose the lies. Second, pay attention to patterns. Not with fear, but with clarity. If misunderstandings always seem to follow a particular person, if trust breaks down repeatedly around the same circle, if conflict and confusion somehow keep finding you through the same path, that's not coincidence, that's a pattern. The wise don't accuse without cause, but they also don't ignore what's right in front of them. Finally, fortify your inner circle. A person standing alone is easy to isolate and manipulate. But when you're surrounded by people who know the truth of who you are, who see through deception and remain loyal not because of what they hear, but because of what they've witnessed, no whisper can break you. Seneca once warned, associate with those who make you a better man. The right people don't get swayed by rumors. They recognize lies for what they are, because betrayal is rarely loud. But even the quietest attacks only succeed when you allow the whispers to define your worth. Stand firm, see clearly, and never ever give your enemy more power than they deserve. 3. The mask of friendship. The most dangerous enemy isn't the one standing across from you. It's the one beside you, smiling, nodding, listening, while silently sharpening the knife. Betrayal rarely comes from a stranger. A stranger doesn't know your weak points. A stranger doesn't know where to strike. Betrayal comes from those you've trusted, those you've welcomed into your inner world. And by the time you realize who they really are, they already know exactly how to dismantle yours. Take Adam, for example. He was no fool. He valued trust, but didn't give it away easily. He was successful, respected, and careful about the people he let close. He knew the world could be cruel. He'd seen enough of it to be cautious. But when he started a new business venture, he met Eric. Eric was charismatic, thoughtful, always ready to help. He wasn't just a colleague, he quickly became a constant presence. Eric was always available, always listening. He praised Adam's ideas. He supported his vision. He made himself essential. Within a few months, Eric wasn't just a work partner, he was a friend. He knew Adam's goals, his frustrations, even his fears. He met Adam's wife, his children. He came over for dinner, laughed at the table, played the role of a trusted confidant perfectly. Then the cracks began to show. Business deals Adam had worked hard on mysteriously started falling through. And somehow Eric was always the one to swoop in and close them instead. Private frustrations Adam had only shared in confidence. They began surfacing in public conversations used against him. Adam thought he had found a trustworthy friend, but the more he confided in Eric, the more his own words began to come back to him. Twisted, rephrased, and weaponized. Everything Adam had shared in confidence slowly echoed back to him, but changed. His private thoughts resurfaced in distorted forms, making him look unreliable, even paranoid. But the most painful part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was the gaslighting. When Adam finally confronted Eric, hoping for honesty, he was met with casual brush-offs. "You're overthinking it. Maybe you just misunderstood. Come on, I'd never do that to you." Yet, the pattern couldn't be denied. The damage wasn't imagined. The very person Adam had trusted most was the one who had quietly dismantled his credibility, not with direct attacks, but through subtle, patient manipulation. This is what makes the false friend so dangerous. Unlike an open enemy, they don't confront you. They don't argue or insult. They don't challenge you face to face. Instead, they embed themselves in your life. They disarm you with kindness. They convince you they're your strongest ally. And when you finally let them in, when they've earned your trust, they turn it against you. They learn your routines, your secrets, your fears, and then they use them not to support you, but to control you. The Stoics would never advise blind trust, not because they were cynical, but because they understood one undeniable truth. Human nature is complex. Marcus Aurelius himself observed that those who rush to prove their loyalty are often the ones most likely to betray you. Real friends earn trust slowly through time and consistent action. But a false friend, they fast-track the process. They work to break down your walls before you even realize you need them. So ask yourself, is there someone in your life who's suddenly taken a deep interest in you? Have they gone from casual acquaintance to confidant almost overnight? Do they seem overly invested, asking where you go, who you see, what worries you, what keeps you up at night? Do they claim to be your biggest supporter, yet somehow feed your doubts and deepen your insecurities? Because a true friend wants what's best for you, but a false friend wants access. And when that access is abused, becomes one of the most dangerous weapons there is. History is full of betrayals that followed this very pattern. Julius Caesar never imagined Brutus, one of his closest allies, would be among his assassins. But as Seneca warned, the prosperous man has more to fear not from his enemies, but from his friends. When you have something valuable, its success, peace of mind, or stability, there will always be those who want to take it. And the easiest way in isn't through force, it's through deception. So how do you protect yourself? Step 1. Awareness. Notice sudden shifts in behavior. If someone seems too eager to know everything about you, if they're rushing into friendship or overly interested in your thoughts, ask yourself why. True connection takes time. A manipulator wants access, not intimacy, and they move fast because control is the real goal. Step 2. Patience. Healthy relationships evolve naturally, but someone with hidden motives will try to speed things up, trying to gain your trust before their true character is revealed. If someone seems too perfect, too supportive, too invested, they probably aren't what they seem. Step 3. Protect your inner world. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts, plans, and vulnerabilities. Epictetus warned us wisely. The more you reveal of yourself, the more you give others the power to use it against you. Be intentional. Guard your space. The greatest Danger doesn't always come from those who openly oppose you. It often comes from the one who stands close enough to whisper, while holding a knife behind their back. Be kind, but not blind. Be open, but not exposed. And above all, never mistake closeness for loyalty. We just discussed how rushing into closeness can be a warning sign, not a badge of trust. Real friendship takes time. Let time do its work. That's the truest test of someone's intentions. If you found these insights helpful so far, let me know by commenting yes below. Your thoughts matter, and I'd love to hear what you think. 4. The gradual attack. No one descends into violence without warning. Just like nature sends signals before a storm-heavy air. Darkening skies, shifting winds, humans give off signs. 2. When someone harbors true malice, they rarely act impulsively. They test, they observe. They escalate, slowly pushing the boundaries a little further each time, just to see how far they can go before revealing their true intent. And if you fail to recognize the signs, you might not realize what's happening until it's far too late. Take Lee Harvey Oswald, the man who assassinated President John F. Kennedy. He didn't wake up one morning and suddenly decide to commit that act. His descent into violence followed a pattern, one that developed over years. He had a long history of aggression, defiance, and extremist ideology. He defected to the Soviet Union, then returned to the United States with growing resentment and a deep sense of alienation. Before Kennedy, he had already attempted another assassination, targeting retired General Edwin Walker, a right-wing figure Oswald viewed as an enemy. That attempt failed, but it was a critical warning sign, a test, a trial run. He refined his methods, escalated in secret, and acted when no one stopped him. By the time he pulled the trigger, his path toward violence had already been in motion for years. That's how escalation works. It never starts with outright violence. It begins with a joke, one that has an edge to it enough to make you pause, but vague enough to be brushed off. Then come the small boundary violations, standing too close, accidentally bumping into you with a bit too much force, blocking your path during a conversation in a way that feels like domination. Then it shifts into subtle threats, sharp comments disguised as humor, casual references to violence, words that make you uneasy but are always wrapped in just enough denial to avoid accountability. And through each step, they watch your reaction. If you laugh it off, they push further. If you stay silent, they take it as permission. Every move is a test. How far can I go before someone stops me? History gives us many examples of this exact pattern. Mark David Chapman, the man who murdered John Lennon, didn't suddenly snap. He spent months lingering outside Lennon's building, lurking and watching. He tested the boundaries. He observed the reactions. He lived out the obsession in his mind. In fact, just hours before he pulled the trigger, he even asked Lennon for an autograph, posing as just another fan. There were signs, disturbing comments, two friends, erratic behavior, but they were dismissed as if he was just a harmless oddball, until he wasn't. Stoicism doesn't teach us to ignore danger. It teaches us to recognize it calmly, clearly, and without fear. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, refusing to face a threat doesn't make it disappear. Avoiding confrontation doesn't make you safe. It just gives the threat more room to grow, because people who test boundaries do so under one assumption: no one will stop them. And for those who remain silent, the consequences can be devastating. So, what should you do? Step 1. Recognize the pattern. If someone constantly makes violent jokes, behaves aggressively, or repeatedly invades your personal space, don't ignore it. People who joke about destruction are often testing how far they can go before someone calls them out. Step 2. Set boundaries immediately. A Stoic doesn't panic, but they also don't stay silent in the face of repeated violations. Earlier, we talked about those who test limits, pushing further only because they assume no one will stop them. But silence is permission, and eventually, if you don't draw a line, they'll cross it. That's why you must never tolerate unnecessary threats. When someone crosses a boundary, address the behavior clearly and firmly. Let them know you see it and that it's not acceptable. If they continue to push, remove yourself from their reach. Some people escalate only because they believe no one will resist them. But the moment they realize you will, many stop. They back down when they face resistance they didn't expect. And if they don't, take action before it's too late. If a situation keeps escalating, don't ignore it. Start documenting everything. Keep a record of inappropriate behavior, threats, or any patterns that signal a growing danger. Seek support, whether it's management, legal authorities, or those in a position of influence. Reach out to people who can intervene, and if needed, create distance. Physical, emotional, professional, whatever it takes to protect your space. Seneca once warned, "A sword never kills by itself. It is only the hand that wields it." Violence doesn't come out of nowhere. It's almost always preceded by warning signs. And the sooner you recognize those signs, the better your chances of stopping danger before it fully unfolds. Fear thrives in ignorance. But when you're equipped with knowledge, awareness, and the courage to act, you take that fear and turn it into strength. No one spirals into chaos by accident. It happens step by step, warning by warning, sign by sign, and no one prevents disaster by pretending danger doesn't exist. So, the real question is, when the wind shifts, when the sky begins to darken, will you notice in time? 5. The long games and threats are loud. They shout, lash out, act on emotion. They're reckless, impulsive, and easy to spot. They give themselves away in the heat of the moment. But the ones you should truly fear, they're quiet, patient, strategic. They don't act in anger. They act with calculation. They observe, they listen, they collect information, and when the timing is perfect, they strike in a way so subtle, so sudden, that you never saw it coming. Unlike obvious aggressors who give you time to prepare, the patient enemy works behind the scenes, quietly weaving themselves into your life, so that when they finally act, the damage is already done. Now think, has someone in your life ever taken an unusual interest in your personal details? Not just surface level talk, but real details. Your future plans, your relationships, your ambitions, even your fears. Sometimes, people ask because they care, but sometimes they ask because information is power. They're studying you, mapping your movements, waiting for the moment you'll be most vulnerable and the real danger. These people rarely raise alarms. They don't look like a threat. In fact, they often appear to be the least threatening person in the room. But history proves again and again, the most devastating betrayals never come from enemies. They come from those you trust. Julius Caesar didn't fear his enemies on the battlefield. he feared Brutus the least. And yet, it was Brutus who stood beside him when the final blow was dealt. People like this don't lash out. They embed themselves in your life. They play the long game. They move slowly, making sure they're close enough to you, so when they turn against you, you're already too entangled to escape. That's why the patient enemy is the hardest to detect. They don't argue. They don't show jealousy. They don't express resentment. Instead, they support you, encourage you, position themselves as someone you can rely on. They make you feel safe, but all the while, they're collecting pieces of your life. Out of love, but preparation, and when the right opportunity presents itself, they act in a way that ensures you can't recover. Maybe it's a boss who praises your work until the moment they push you out. Maybe it's a business partner who agrees with every idea until you're vulnerable and they sabotage it. Maybe it's someone closer, a friend, a family member, someone who waits until they hold maximum influence over you before they finally strike. Marcus Aurelius once warned against trusting appearances. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. A patient enemy knows this. They hide their true nature beneath charm, warmth, and false loyalty. They let you believe they're an ally until the moment they decide not to be. So, how do you protect yourself? First, be mindful of those who show an unusual, persistent interest in your private life. Not everyone who asks questions is a threat, but if someone seems too invested in every detail, take note. Second, never give away more than necessary. The Stoics believed in self-reliance. Use your own judgment. Don't place blind trust in others. Finally, trust patterns, not promises. A true friend proves themselves over time, not by what they say, but by how they act, especially when there's nothing to gain, because the patient enemy, they wait for one thing. The moment you lower your guard, don't let them have it. If you see this pattern in someone's behavior, understand this clearly. You're not dealing with a petty rival. You're dealing with a calculated threat. And, in such cases, survival doesn't come from reacting fast. It comes from seeing it coming before it even begins. Before you go to things, first, save this video. The signs you've learned today may one day be the thin line between awareness and being blindsided. Remember, the most dangerous threats aren't the ones that shout. They're the ones that smile. Second, watch the next video on your screen. It will help you recognize covert manipulators, because people like we've discussed today rarely act alone. They wear masks, and the more you understand their patterns, the harder it is for them to deceive you. If this video opened your eyes, let me know in the comments by writing, "Now I see clearly." Because once you recognize these signs, you can't unsee them. If you want to keep sharpening your instincts, protecting yourself, and staying 5 steps ahead, hit that subscribe button. Knowledge is power, but action keeps you safe. Stay sharp, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next one.